Hi everybody, this is Shane with Arc Dream Publishing. I'm really excited to present the Session 0 episode of our new Swords and Sorceries campaign that I'm recording with a bunch of friends of ours. I'm less excited to admit that my audio quality in this opening episode is garbage. I mean, just garbage. I used the wrong microphone altogether and did not realize what a drastic difference it was going to make until we had totally wrapped things up and started editing the audio and the video together. But we've got lots of awesome scares ahead of you and adventures ahead for you in this campaign. We're going to be starting with the Sea Demon's Gold, which is a first level adventure that I wrote for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons in the Swords and Sorceries line, and it's good and scary and dangerous, and it's kind of optimized for all the vulnerability that first level 5th edition characters begin with. And then we'll take it from there into other adventures in the series. The Song of the Sun Queens at 2nd level, the Tomb of Fire at 3rd level, and then a number of adventures that I've written and playtested, but that we haven't published yet, and that I hope that we'll be able to see soon coming out in the series. So thanks again, and enjoy Session 0.
This is Shane Ivey, and I'm with Arc Dream Publishing, and I have the great pleasure of starting a D&D 5th edition campaign with my friends Mark Finn and Chris Spivey and Megan Tolentino and Aser Tolentino. And we're going to be running adventures that I've written for a series called Swords and Sorceries. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So how about we do some introductions for everybody so we all know kind of who we all are and whether we've got any foibles that are going to make our heads explode against each other. So let's see. How about Mark? You go first.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark Finn. I am a writer and an editor, and I wear a lot of different hats. If anybody in the group knows me at all, it's probably from my work in Robert E. Howard studies. I'm the guy that wrote Blood and Thunder, The Life and Art of Robert E. Howard. And I am also a longtime game player and reader and a very indolent designer. And I just launched a Kickstarter for a zine that I'm working on called Monty Haul. So there you go.
Very good. Hey, tell us, Mark, before we move on, tell people what's the Monty Haul zine for? Like, what's it about? What's the selling point on that? Why should we invest in you, Mark?
Very good. Last year, Kickstarter wanted to do a thing for February called Zine Quest, celebrating the old school zine people from the 70s and 80s that sort of kept the nascent role-playing game industry going with content and regular discussions that moved everything forward when nobody was really connected. This was pre-internet and all that good stuff. So it was very successful. The whole idea was a low-tech campaign, make a zine. It's got to be saddle stitched and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought it was lovely, but I couldn't do it last year because I was recovering from surgery. So this year I said, I am good to go. And Monty Haul is my 5th edition content that I have pulled and massaged out of all of my old Dungeons and Dragons campaigns over the years. So I updated a lot of stuff since 5th edition is pretty flexible. And along the way, I found some new character concepts and archetypes and backgrounds. And some of the really great things about 5th edition is how flexible and open-ended that stuff is. And so Monty Haul is a collection of that in zine form. Short rule options and character tools, and in some cases some optional rules you can do for running. The thing I'm most excited to get to is heists. I've got a system that lets you run heists a la Thieves Guild, Thieves World, Fawford and Grey Mouser style stuff that's going to be in there. And I'm publishing. Yeah. I'm real excited about it. It's got a kind of an 80s sword and sorcery vibe to it. If you remember all that stuff that was out in the 80s, there was really this great minefield of awesome books, Tolkien clones and everything. And that was where I drew a lot of inspiration for that stuff initially. And dusting it off, it works great in 5th edition. So,
all right, very cool. Yeah, and that's Monty Haul. That's Monty with a Y. So all the gamers out there who habitually type E at the end from Monty.
Monty Haul,
Monty Haul.
Monty Haul, and of course the name is a reference to one of the original gamer terms that we used to do. I don't even know if it's even in use anymore, but I really liked it. It sure beat calling it 10-foot pole. You know, it was either that or 10-foot pole. I thought Monty Haul sounded cool. Less actionable, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm moving to the right on my my list of players on Roll20 here, and Chris, introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Chris Spivey. I'm a writer, game developer, and CEO of Darker Hue Studios. We're probably mostly known for I'll sort of step on my own little. Sorry, I'll give myself a little brag here, saying the three-time Gold Annie Award-winning Harlem Unbound. I'm recently ran an incredibly successful Kickstarter for an alternate West game called Haunted West, and I'm excited to play D&D for the first time in a decade.
Awesome, yeah. So the 3-time Annie Award thing. Congratulations again. I was really excited to see that happen, and you know, and it's and I'll say as having won an awful lot of those things, it's cute to see the new kids get excited about them.
Thanks, Pop.
All right, and let's see. So you're focusing right now on Haunted West, right?
It's a alternate history Weird West game, and it's sort of a layered concept. You have a Weird West role-playing game that you could play without the alternate history, or you could layer the alternate history on top of it, which for us, we went for an alternate history where both Lincoln and Johnson were assassinated, and that gives us a chance to change the entire course of the world during the Reconstruction period.
Oh. And what does that do for gameplay? Like, how does Haunted West, you know, how does it differ from sort of what people would expect as a traditional Western, either in the genre or as role-playing games?
One of the primary focus of the game is highlighting the forgotten voices of the West, because if you go and look at Hollywood and everywhere else, the West is incredibly whitewashed, and the real historical West was full of diverse people from all sorts of backgrounds, countries, religions, and everything else. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure all of those different voices get acknowledged and seen.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I'm really excited to see the shape it takes. And yeah, that's a subject I could talk about for hours with you. So let's don't do that, because that's a whole other one.
Next time we're at the bar.
That's right. So Megan and Aser, you're next on the list, and I say it together because you're both on the same little window thingy that I'm looking at here. So let's have you introduce yourselves, please.
It's not just a coincidence that we have the same uncommon last name. We are married. We run a couple of podcasts together, mostly, only actual play podcasts. We do interviews with people sometimes, but mostly actual play, where we play pretty much anything that catches our interest. So the Redacted Files is our main show, which has been going for 5.5 years now. We play a lot of Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu, and then a bunch of other less investigative games. And we've also branched off. So the Amberclave is our Numenera podcast, and we've streamed Tachyon Squadron as a show, and we recently readopted Firefly podcast. That's all of them, right?
I think that's everything. And
All right.
on a yearly basis, we bother Shane at Gen Con and run Delta Green.
Can confirm. Okay, great. So, and your main website is theredactedfiles.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so let's get into the game and start talking about that. So we're using 5th edition for the rules, with some tweaks here and there because I'm I don't know. I don't know if addict is the right word or compulsive or whatever, but I don't think I've ever run a role-playing game straight out of the box without monkeying with it. So it'll have a few tweaks here and there, but they're not all that dramatic. The big departure for the Swords and Sorceries adventures from traditional D&D has more to do with the setting and the way that the world looks and works around everyone. Instead of being kind of a medieval setting or high fantasy or Forgotten Realms-esque or Tolkien-esque, it's very deliberately set in the ancient world and even more ancient than usual ancient world. So my touchstones for the Swords and Sorceries adventures and settings is like I don't know, the late Iron Age, like 700 BC or so, where the classical Greece has not really arisen. The Mechanians, the sort of the ancestors of what everybody knows as the Greeks, were out there, but Alexander hadn't gone around conquering everything. Rome hadn't arisen and invented legions to make the hoary old phalanx obsolete, and so the world kind of looks and feels very different from what you're used to. But this is a fictional world, and so and the joy of that is then if I decide I want to put a legion in there or change up some of the details, then I'm going to do it by gum, and nobody can stop me. So and that kind of informs the way that characters look and the way that the different classes and character races look in the game and how they interact with the setting and the cultures of the setting. And magic, I kind of encourage. I actually have a subset of rules that are optional, but it's there for the players to use. For example, if you're playing a magic user, where I wrote up a bunch of sample ways to gain inspiration as a spellcaster by describing how you get your magic back, how you get your power back. And usually it has to do with, interacting with weird spirits out in the world and doing sacrifices and things. So it doesn't feel like just superpowers. And then the non-human races like elves and dwarves and everything, they're in there, but they have their own strange kind of idiosyncrasies. I think that's the word. And but yeah, we can talk about those a little bit further as we go. But the main thing to sort of get in your head is that the core of the setting when we start off is in a region called the Sea of Storms, which is kind of analogous to the Mediterranean, and the predominant culture, human culture in the region in around the Sea of Storms was formerly this long-lived kind of brutal empire called the Aser Empire, which was overthrown a few generations back by another empire. I mean, it doesn't call itself an empire, but that's what it is. From way out in the east, in the very dry, deserty land, called the Samaran kingdoms. And since then, the Samarans have not really done a great job of ruling things or keeping things calm, and so you've got this sort of large swaths of the country that have ruins that are haunted, where there used to be kind of an iron fist keeping everything down, and there's not anymore, and nothing has really come in to replace it. And so you've got a lot of regions that are just ripe for exploration and adventure and danger and ways for up and coming adventurers to make their mark. So, having said all that, I think we've said that some of our players here are real familiar with 5th edition, and some are not, right? So let's see. Where should we start? I guess talking about does everybody have access to a player's handbook first of all? Because that'll make it easier to compare notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a PHB.
Okay, very good. So making up a character in 5th edition, we have in Roll20, we have character sheets, and the Roll20 character sheets for 5th edition are pretty cool because once you fill it out properly, then it automates a lot of elements. So, for example, if you want to say that your sheet should have an explorer's pack, there's a compendium you can call up and just drag the explorer's pack over to your sheet, and it puts it in there. You know, if you say you should have a longsword, you just drag the longsword over from the compendium, and it puts it in your equipment, and it tells you how much it weighs, and it tells how much damage it does, and all of that, which reduces the amount of fiddliness that you have to do, and it also speeds things up in play. So let's talk a little bit about characters and the way that they're going to relate to each other. I envisioned setting this up where your characters are part of a ship's crew on this like merchant ship that looks like an old Phoenician sailing ship and rowing ship, and that's what kind of binds you together as we kick things off, and that'll also give us an easy excuse to have you traveling all over the place and showing up in new locations. So I don't know, let's talk about that. And who has Mark, do you have a character in mind already? Go ahead.
I do. For my sins, I love playing rogues. It's the Conan Greymouser in me. And I got to tell you, I'm really interested in taking your Blade Sharp archetype for a spin. So I think I want to just go ahead and be a rogue in this particular setup.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. If you do that, I would love to see that too, because the more play testing, the merrier. You know, and when you're doing subclasses and that kind of thing, and that's exactly why I built that subclass for this setting, was to sort of fill what felt like a gap in the games I've played.
Well, consider me your Huckleberry.
Say that again?
Consider me your Huckleberry.
Oh, very good. All right. Okay, and let's see. Chris, what about you?
I've got an idea that's sort of a Witcher Heimdall sort of thing going on. That'll either be primarily a revised ranger or paladin with a little dip into warlock.
Oh, okay. So you're already thinking long term. Yeah, very cool. All right, and let's see, Megan. And Megan, what do you think? What do you have in mind, if anything?
I always play dwarven clerics when I play D&D, so I think I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
And I really liked the look of the summoning domain.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that would be interesting to see that one in play too. That's another one I did from scratch for this setting. Okay, and Aser, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm generally usually a fighter, and the phalanx is going to rule the day forever, and I'm very confident in its longevity. So we're going to go with a shield bearer and see what happens.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah.
No,
so
certainly no.
Just encourage your generals to put stuff on the flanks, for God's sakes. Otherwise, those spears are all just pointing in one direction, and then what are you going to do? Okay, so making up the characters, right? If you can call up the character sheets on Roll20, each of you has a player character sheet assigned. They don't have any art, they don't have names, they don't have anything. But if you call it up, then you can click on that in order to start filling it out. And it'll give you options for, do you want to use the Charactermancer, which is their built-in system that kind of automates it to a large extent, or do you want to fill it out by hand? The downside of the Charactermancer is, if I remember right, the last time I used it, it only includes elements that are in the 5e open game license, the system reference document. So there are lots of feats, for example, that are in the player's handbook that aren't available through that. So you can use it to get part of the way, and then if you want to customize it further, you have to do that more proactively. Or you can just call up a blank sheet and say, I'm gonna do it myself. But that's the place to start. And then for stats, I think you can use the like in the player's handbook, there's the point buy system is fine, or just pick from one of those charts on page whatever it is, one of the early pages.
Standard array.
Yeah, one of the standard array. It's on page, what is it, 13? Is that what I'm looking at? My eyeballs are not great. Or if you want to roll dice like a champion, you're welcome to roll dice for your ability scores.
I'm a traditionalist. I want to roll some dice.
Okay, so the standard array is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. And then otherwise you can use the point scores to line things up where you want. Or if you want to roll for it, then each of it roll 4d6, take the best 3, and do that 6 times and put those where you want them. And do you know how to roll dice in Roll20? Has everybody done that before?
I think so.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
I'm going to go ahead and type out in quotation marks actually, if you look at the Roll20 screen, it'll tell you the instructions. You just type a little / roll space 4d6 or whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
It's crazy. All right, so mine basically 11, 12, 13, or 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So
all right, well done.
A little bit better than the standard array, but okay.
Well, it was random-ish. We all saw it. As random as the computers can get anyway.
There you go.
So looking at Mark's scores, you said you're interested in doing a rogue, and you want to do the blade sharp subclass eventually, which is sort of a fighty rogue. But rogues of all kinds desperately need dexterity more than anything else, and they also, they're very skill oriented, which means you usually benefit from your charisma or intelligence or wisdom being pretty good. And they don't have any hit points, so you don't want your constitution to, which means that 90% of the rogues in the D&D sphere have strength as their crummiest stat, right? Because you can just use a finesse weapon like a rapier or something equivalent to that as your main thing. So you can kind of use that as your guide as to where you want to put the scores, and also you want to use what race of character you're playing, right? Because some of the races will give you a bonus. You might get a +1 bonus that you can apply to your dexterity or whatever if you're playing an elf. Or if you're playing a human, then you have an option of either +1 across the board to every score, or +1 to each of any 2 scores, and you start with an additional feat and I think an additional skill. We can look that up if we need to.
I like being a human because I know how best to play that. So that's going to be what I play, and I'm going to look here and see what works. And forever since I've looked at the human things.
Yeah, the variant for humans is 2 ability scores get +1, and then you get proficiency and an extra skill, and you get an extra feat of your choice.
That's going to definitely make me. That's going to definitely make me heroic out of the gate. So,
I'm sorry. Say that again. I interrupted you.
That's going to definitely make me more heroic out of the gate. So since I think I'm going to be the only guy with skills in the party, I want to be as useful as I can be in that regard.
All right. So you can start putting down your putting your stats where they go, and put the bonuses where they're going to go. And Chris, have you been looking it over?
I've been listening. I'm still torn between having the core of the character be a revised ranger or a paladin.
Yeah, sure. So, well, can you characterize what you want him or her, whatever, to sort of feel like in action? You know what I mean?
Envisioning almost more of a rugged-esque monster hunter that has a little Sherlockian twist to it that can do a little magic. So it has like a bag of tricks to pull out, but primarily depending on wits and fighting capability.
Yeah, so far to me that sounds a little more rangery than paladin-y, because rangers have more skills to draw, skill proficiencies to draw on, and that means that they have the flexibility of being sneaky if they need to, or tricky if they need to, depending on how you build it. You have the chance to do that do some of that with a paladin, but their skill access is a little lower, right? So you'd have to pick your background really carefully. If you wanted to be a sneaky paladin, for instance, your options are kind of slim. You'd have to make sure that you pick like the criminal background or whichever, or maybe urchin starts with stealth. And so that'll certainly help shape and define the character, but because paladins don't have as many skills, they have more access to magic, right? So they have sort of built-in abilities to detect in otherworldly evils around them. And then their spells are different as well. So paladins, as soon as you hit I don't know if it's second or third level, right? You're able to start casting paladin spells, which are generally cleric, like cleric spells in nature, but they have some of their own custom stuff as well. That's generally about stabbing evil things to death with magic. And
I know the other
rangers, part of it. What's that?
I was saying I just knew the other part of it is I want to take like a 3-level dip into Warlock and become a Hexblade and add that sort of versatility into whichever character I run with.
Oh, okay. And so let's think this through. Warlocks, remind me, do you remember, have you looked at it recently? Like what abilities do Warlocks most rely on?
Most of their stuff comes off of charisma, and they've got some nice little magic tricks and like a hex blast and some other things.
Yeah, so the charisma thing is interesting because paladins heavily rely on charisma too. So if you wanted to sort of get the most efficiencies going, then that would probably be your best bet if you're choosing between paladin or ranger or fighter. You already know that you're going to want your charisma as a paladin to not be terrible. Because there are certain paladin abilities that need charisma.
That's about as far as most of my thoughts have gone so far. I'm torn between two very similar but two very different characters all at once.
Yeah. So I would say just sort of look through like you probably have a pretty good sense already of what a paladin looks like at the, in the fiction, right? And what a ranger is going to look like in the fiction. And so you can kind of start mulling through that. Megan, what you said? You said dwarf cleric, so you're already pretty well squared away. There's none of this existential angst going on for you, is there? Or Aser, are you there?
Sorry, we muted. Yes, I am mostly squared away. I had a question about domain spells. I don't remember if I get those automatically or if they're just added to my list of spells I can choose from.
Right. So essentially, and I'll correct myself if I tell you this wrong, but a domain spell is available to you. Like I'm going to read it through and make sure I'm not being dumb. But if I remember right, a domain spell is always available,
Mhm.
right? So it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. It's always considered prepared, right? So you always, among your prepared spells, if you have the knowledge domain, for instance, it's first level cleric spells or command and identify. So you would always have those two among your, in addition to the spells that you choose as prepared.
Okay.
So as a first level cleric, you can you prepare a number of spells equal to your wisdom modifier plus your cleric level. And so if your wisdom is 16, let's say, then that's a +3 modifier, and you're a first level cleric. So you're going to be able to prepare 4 spells plus the 2 from your domain. And then as a first level cleric, each day, but between each long rest, you can cast 2 first level spells. So that means that you'll have that list of 6 available, and then you can cast 2 of those along the way.
My other question was related to the gods, since especially as a cleric, they're involved in my life. Is there a region I should be picking gods from as a dwarf, or are dwarves sort of everywhere? Because it seems like not everyone has seen them before.
So the short answer is it's pretty much up to you, right? If you see one of the cultures that's described in the handouts, did I give you the About the Broken Empire handout?
Yeah.
If you scroll through that, and there's one of those cultures and pantheons that particularly appeals to you, then what do you know? There's dwarves there.
All right, perfect. Now I'm gonna have to choose though. So
That's true. Okay, you get some angst after all. Aser, how about you?
I think I'm good.
So what have you settled on?
Again, how am I looking?
I needed to figure out where you wanted to put your ability points.
Oh, okay. Strength. Strength is always good.
All right. Start with strength. You get, if I'm going with the array, it's 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8.
Strength, dexterity, wisdom, charisma.
Not constitution.
Oh, yeah. I guess constitution, charisma.
All right.
And I won't be very smart.
I think we'll have to manually do the backgrounds because the only one in here is Acolyte.
Yeah, that's that those OGL restrictions I was talking about. What race are you looking at, Acer? Do you know?
Boring human.
Well, you don't have to be boring. We're not all boring. I mean, most of us are, but not all.
Oh, I'm boring. Actually, I'm taking that as a background. Boring.
So yeah, well, again with the human, you have the options either +1 across the board with all your abilities, or if you want to specialize in 2 abilities, then you can get an extra skill and an extra feat.
I am going with variant human, by the way. I wanted to make sure that you heard me say that. So.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Okay, yeah, just sort of jot everything down.
Yeah, I'm making notes on the sheet where appropriate.
Right, and you'll get skills from your character's background as well as from the class, which means the bonus skill that you're getting from the variant human, you probably want to wait till last to decide what that's going to be, because that can be any of them.
I am kind of looking ahead to the feet though, so that's
There
got to
is,
be that.
Where did I put it? There's I thought I put the link in one of the handouts here, that there was there's a website that I particularly like where the author of the site has been doing insanely deep dives into the mechanics and the mathematics of the different classes and feats that are available. Oh, it looks like Chris just posted that in the Discord chat window. So
that guy is nutty in the best of ways.
I could be looking at that right now.
Yeah, so like since you're going to have a feat to choose from out of the gate as a variant human, then that'll give you a good idea of which ones are most valuable from a mechanical standpoint. Because Megan was talking about the summoning domain, I called that up on Roll20, so I'm kind of scrolling along that, refreshing my memory as to how I built that. I put that together, that domain together, to represent sort of a kind of religion, a kind of folklore, the mythology from the ancient world, especially, that was really, really prevalent, but that you don't see much in the games, which is like the crossroads gods, the gods that they're all about magic and allowing a magician or a priest to make contact with the other world.
Yeah.
And and there are whole long branches of mysticism that were devoted to that. And it's not, in D&D terms, it doesn't really feel like wizardry, right? It doesn't feel like a warlock thing or a sorcerer thing. It feels like, priests, like full-time clerics, but that's what their gods are devoted to.
Right.
And so it adds some spells that feel a little more wizardy to the cleric's repertoire, and they gain some arcana knowledge, but they're still fundamentally clerics. But their bent is towards those magical and summoning things.
The great thing about 5th edition is it really is kind of D&D's greatest hits. But one of the things that I just never really warmed to as an early player was the Forgotten Realms. And unfortunately, everything kind of takes place in the Forgotten Realms. So, literally within 10 minutes of opening up the first 5th edition book that I bought, I was like, oh, hell no. And so with that, when you take out their setting, all of a sudden it opens up all these great possibilities for, alternate ways of interpreting, cosmology and stuff like that. So I
totally agree. One thing I really enjoyed when the Player's Handbook came out was that the art, the illustrations, they deliberately did not try to make the illustrations one coherent setting. Like they didn't seem to be trying to evoke a particular world. They could be, right, but you have a lot of the images that look like they're in some new place altogether, which is brilliant and exactly what I would have wanted them to do. Because that frees you up to, if you want to play in the Forgotten Realms. It's certainly a D&D world, right? It has every ingredient that you can want and decades of development behind it. The things I've loved most about the game and other role-playing games, is the amount of creativity that it facilitates, right? So developing the Broken Empire setting that I started working on when I knew I wanted it. I was mostly inspired by just amateur linguistic studies, and
Sure.
looking at the roots of the European cultures and languages, and the ways that the European and Mediterranean and Indian and Asian cultures are so interconnected, going way back into the ancient past. Like that just started my imagination going 90 to nothing the more I was reading. And D&D still does a great job of letting you evoke that.
That was probably the other smart thing that I saw that 5th edition did. In the back, it basically said, we're using the Forgotten Realms, but here's all of the other stuff we've ever done. And you could, of course, make up your own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And as old, crusty gamers that we are, Shane, we know we don't need permission to do that, but it was nice that they gave it to us anyways.
Sure, yeah. Well, 5th edition has done a great job of bringing new players into the hobby, and new players need to hear that just like I did when I was a kid, when I first started picking these things up. So that otherwise you can kind of assume, or you see how it's played, and it's easy to assume, oh, that's how it's played and no other way. And then when people suggest doing something else, then it gets weird. And so come out of the gate highlighting, encouraging that kind of creativity is exactly what it needed to do, and it worked.
back in the day for us, that was Dragon Magazine, right? Where every month they were bending and breaking and publishing alternate stuff. And, one of the things about not having an internet and not having all these different media channels was that what was out there was, we all gravitated on it. We were all reading the same magazine. And so, yeah, it was nice. It was nice to have permission to do that, in even in a semi formal capacity like Dragon or Different Worlds or stuff like that. And so yeah, I've been this is I've approached every game since then with the idea of, I don't like that rule, we're going to do something different. So it's good. It's really good. And of course they wisely figured out 20 years ago that they're much better off encouraging this and letting people do what they want with it, with their, indulgent permission, than trying to stamp it all out. I think that opening up with the open game license was the smartest thing they ever did.
Yeah. Well, inside the industry, opinions on that can vary widely. I happen to agree with you, but it also took, that's a whole other discussion that would.
It's a separate
bunny trails. But okay, so let's see, Chris, how's it coming with you? Have you settled on yourself?
So, at least for this call, I've decided we're going to go with the paladin.
All right, and so long term, you think you're a paladin for a level or two, and then take on a patron and live as a warlock for a while. Is that right? Is that what you're thinking?
Right now, I'm thinking something like maybe the first level paladin, first maybe 1 or 2 levels paladin, then 3 levels of warlock, and then coming back to paladin and running that for the rest of the time.
Right. Yeah. I was saying, I think I said earlier that with multi-classing, the one drawback for me with multi-classing with 5th edition has always been I tend to play fighter types, either a fighter or a barbarian or whatever, and what you lose in multi-classing with one of the martial classes is that magical extra attack class ability at fifth level. If you stay as a fighter or as a paladin or whatever until 5th level, then you get that. But if you switch up, right, and then if you come back to it, right, so you do 2 levels as a fighter, and then 4 levels as as a cleric, and then come back to fighter, it's not till you hit 5th level as fighter, right, that you get that extra attack ability. Which that's not the end of the world, but it's such a huge bonus and a huge, especially as characters are leveling up.
Well, as a GM, if you're specifically highlighting that point, I think it's a huge bonus.
Oh well, I just want to make clear that it irked the hell out of me, because my favorite long-term character was a barbarian I was playing, and so when we were playing the campaign, I had in mind early on sort of dipping out and picking up a different class, because of one kind or another, maybe even picking up some fighter abilities, but I wanted that extra attack. Damn it. And so I wound up just staying put.
I really enjoy playing usually jack of all trades that count more on ingenuity to figure out problems. And so I wanted to try something a little different. For instance, when I played 3.5, my favorite class was a factotum.
What's that like? I don't remember that.
That's basically the class that lets you do a little bit of everything, but you have a certain number of points that you can spend in it today. Like you could do alchemy, potentially fight like a fighter. You could pull out some magical tricks, but it's a very finite number that you could do a day.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes me curious. How did they present that? Was that points? Did that represent something in the fiction, or was that just sort of a meta device to keep you from running away with the game?
I think in one of the book they put it in. It was almost sort of like, what were they called? They were equivalently like spell slots, and you get a number of them per day. At lower level, you might get 1 or 2, and you would max out, I think, at around like 8 spell slots, equivalently a day for that.
Okay, so you can kind of play it as you get some moment of inspired genius of figuring out how to do something maybe.
And other than that, you were sort of a second-hand rogue, third-hand magic user.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm thinking right now paladin, and I'll just need to choose the right background to get the couple of extra skills I think that I want.
Yeah, exactly. So if they put the backgrounds pretty far in the back of the book, right? Around 130, 140, page 130, 140-ish. And you're exactly right. Like what you want to look at is from a gameplay standpoint, what are the skills that it offers? Because that's going to be the thing that you're going to run in, that you're going to use the most. And then from that, each of them has proficiencies that they add, and then that'll shape your character's personality traits and ideals and all that, which I'm pretty flexible on those. Like if you pick one background and the traits, there's none that really fits you, you're more than welcome to grab one from a different background, as long as it doesn't just like completely nullify the background that you picked.
Okay. So, as there may be one or two listeners like me that are not familiar with 5e, can you sort of explain how some of the rules might run?
Yeah, what kind of rules?
We keep talking about skills and other things like that. I know originally in like 3.5, you might have a matrix of 10 points that you'd have skill ranks you could assign to skills.
Sure, yeah. So in 5th edition, instead of that, what they say is you just gain proficiency in a skill. And if you have proficiency in a skill, then you add your proficiency bonus. And the proficiency bonus for a character is based strictly on character level. So for levels, I think it's levels 1 through 5, maybe 1 through 4, but it's on the the class charts. That proficiency bonus is +2, and then at the medium levels, it goes to +3 and eventually +4, and I think it caps out at +5. But so with history, for instance, each of the skills in 5th edition is an extension or an expression of an ability check. So the history skill is a particular use of your intelligence. So what you're doing is you're making an intelligence check, and then if you're proficient in history, you add your proficiency bonus to it. So if your intelligence is 14, for instance, then that's going to give you a +2 intelligence modifier to your rolls. So you'll roll a d20, you'll add 2 for your intelligence, and then because you're proficient in history, then you would add +2 to that if you're first level. So you'd have a +4 instead of a +2.
Okay.
And that's all there is to it. It's actually pretty dead simple. So when they say the skill proficiencies, then you're just picking them, and you don't have to worry about how many ranks you're putting towards each. The only variation that comes up for that is some of the classes have special things they can do with skills, and there are certain feats that affect that might affect some of your skills, but those are exceptions, right? So they only come up if you really want them to. And if you're looking at the backgrounds, it's the same thing with tool proficiencies or vehicle proficiencies. If you like the noble proficiency, it says you have a tool proficiency, one type of gaming set. So you choose, like, you want to be really good at playing cards. So you put cards as your gaming set proficiency. And how you'll use that is if your character is gambling with somebody or playing cards with somebody, then you would make your roll, and that might be a wisdom roll, it might be an intelligence roll or a charisma check or whatever, but then you'd get that proficiency bonus. Even though there's no particular skill that applies to it, you're using a tool that you're good with, and so that's going to apply to it instead. Megan, have you how far along have you gotten?
Well, I tried to save Acer's character, and then it sort of started over, so I'm starting over on his character.
Oh no, on the character sheet.
Yeah, but I'm gonna at least get something in there, and then I can go through Acer and see what wrong choices I made for him.
Okay.
Shane.
Yeah.
Let's talk backgrounds for a second.
Sure.
I don't like to play evil characters, so I think I like rogues with a heart of gold. And so I was looking at the criminal background, but I wanted to make sure that I could choose a specialty that was less horrible and more useful to being on a boat. Like, for example, smuggler.
Yeah, I can see that as a criminal specialty.
Yeah,
yeah. Just about every port worth its salt that you come into is going to try to put taxes on you for importing things.
So, if is that okay with you, or should I work on something?
In fact, smuggler is one of the listed specialties that they have there.
Yes. Okay, good. All right. I'm not a big fan of charlatan. It's one of the backgrounds I would do differently. But that's neither here nor there. So, criminal it is. And do you want us to roll or pick our thingamabobs, our personality, ideal, and bond, and flaw and stuff?
Oh, either one. You can if one of those really speaks to you, then grab it. Or if you just want to roll and see what it looks like, then you can roll.
Very good. All right.
A little light tax evasion notwithstanding, how reputable is this merchant ship?
That's going to be largely up to the four of you. I can play it a lot of different ways. The ship is the Heart of Iron, and it's captained by Helia Lynn-Harian, and let me see. So she's a human ship captain, and in fact, on the Roll20 map, I will bring her token to the main level or public, so you can get a look at her sketch.
Are all the backgrounds open?
Yeah, sure. I'd say it might be useful to kind of compare notes with the other players, right? So everybody can kind of get a sense of where you're coming from, and that'll also help us kind of figure out what bonds bring your characters together, right? Why do you trust each other? Why are you willing to?
I'm thinking Haunted One for my background.
Yeah, is that one of the? I forgot. Is that one from Xanathar?
Strahd.
Oh, okay, Strahd. Yeah, that's right. That's where I saw that. Yeah, that could be interesting. Tell us, what are you looking at? Or do you have the description in front of you?
The feature is Heart of Darkness. Those who look into your eyes can see that you faced unimaginable horror and that you're no stranger to darkness. Though they may fear you, commoners will extend you every courtesy and do their utmost to help you. Unless you have shown yourself to be a danger to them, they will even take up arms to fight alongside you, should you find yourself facing an enemy alone.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, I think I could totally see that. This is a particularly haunted setting, right? And so everybody that you meet is convinced, and often rightly, that there's various spirits of nature and the dead and demons from the underworld that are constantly messing with them or helping them if they give them the right sacrifices. So that's a character background that would certainly fit, and it would look a little different in play than it looks in Strahd, for instance, right? In Ravenloft, that feels like a character that's going to become an avenger against the vampires, right? And here it's a little, the emphasis is a little different, so that could be fun.
Awesome.
So I will say, as far as looking at like alignments and good and evil and everything, to me the key is if if one of you wants to play a character that's good alignment and somebody else you just have your heart set on being ruthless and evil, then I'm okay with that as a game master. But what's going to be crucial is making sure that something ties your characters together, right? So that you are compelled morally or because of family ties or some other duty to back each other up, right? And to make that difference a source of fruitful conflict instead of a conflict that it would make no sense for you to still be hanging out together after the first 2 or 3 adventures.
Okay, that's fair. I like I said, I don't want to play an evil rogue. My guy's going to be opportunistic and certainly not above doing something shady, but not a moral. He's more a fight the power kind of a guy than I'm going to take what's mine kind of guy. So I can work with that, and I'm happy to find reasons to like everybody. In fact, I just took for a personality trait. I would rather make a new friend than a new enemy. So there you go.
Very good. And I guess it might help also talking about alignments, because they can be so problematic, to give you a sense of the way I interpret evil in Dungeons and Dragons. Is, to me, what it really comes down to in D&D is how far are you willing to go to get what you want, right? So an evil character you might be able to get along with them perfectly well and not have any problems in the world until you are in between them and something that they need or that they desperately want or think they're owed. And then they are way more, an evil character is, it's like, if I'm evil, I'm willing to do anything to get what I want. There are very few limits, unless there's some outside limit, like it's going to make my brother want to kill me. If you're good, then there's a lot of limits because you're motivated by wanting to do right by people and wanting people to get along and to help people. And if you're neutral, then you're sort of in between, right? There's limits to how far you'll go, but you don't worry too much about it unless you get up to that line that you're not going to cross. That's
good. That's a good way to put that. Because I just chose something important was taken from me, and I aim to steal it back. I don't know what that's going to be just yet, but that may be the thing that puts me in the quandary. How far would I be willing to go to get back the thing that was taken from me?
Yeah, and you could explore that as a good character or a neutral character.
I hate that I'm thinking. I hate that I'm thinking of this as a dungeon master. I'm going to try not to do that. Really try. Right. But unfortunately, old habits sort of die hard.
All right, so Megan, your dwarf cleric. Is this a chaotic evil dwarf cleric?
I was thinking neutral evil. I'm definitely gonna go with the jealous, greedy type of dwarf who likes to have shiny things.
Okay, yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah,
but I mean, I won't steal them from my party members. I'll just try to convince them to give them to me.
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, to me the key there is to make sure that we sort of establish ahead of time what it is like. What does your character feel like you owe the rest of these people? Right. You're all different backgrounds and races. So you're not going to be family necessarily, but there's something that ties you to them and ties them to you that'll potentially either rein in your worst impulses or give them reason to tolerate them when they don't have any other choice.
Yeah, I do want to be clear. I'm not going to be trying to steal stuff from people in the middle of the night, in case anyone was worried about PvP stuff.
Okay.
But if I can convince you that I deserve the bigger share, that's fine.
I think you and I are going to get along just fine, especially if there's a plan to get the gold without any casualties. I'm sensing a partnership here.
Yeah.
You don't have any moral compunctions. I don't have any moral compunctions. It would be wrong to put that sort of temptation in front of all these other people. Right.
We're helping you.
That's right. This is not. We don't want the gold. It's not for us. It's to make sure that you're not tempted by it.
You wouldn't want us to descend into ill repute.
Oh, don't make the choices we've made. Don't let us be an example to you of what not to do. Plus all of this, and we will make sure that you never are tempted by it again.
You're welcome.
I'm excited to be a part of it.
Just like you don't want us tempted by that pie.
That's right. Well, it's going to be, I mean, gold is gold, but pie is pie.
I'm going to go with clan crafter as my background, which is basically I'm an awesome dwarf.
Did you say clan crafter or clam crafter?
Well, my clan just loves clowns, so it's hard to tell. No.
I'm like, I don't. Is that where did you get that? First of all, I'm curious.
I'm not sure. It is in my D&D Beyond book shelf.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
I'm not sure where it came from.
Yeah, that's fine. So tell us about it. Like, what do they say is the gist of it?
The stout folk are well known for their artisanship and worth of their handiworks, and you've been trained in that ancient tradition. For years, you labored under a dwarf master of the craft, enduring long hours and dismissive, sour-tempered treatment in order to gain the fine skills you possess today. So I'm going to take investigation and history from this, and the main feature is no one esteems me quite so highly as dwarves do. I always have free room and board in any place where shield dwarves or gold dwarves dwell.
Okay, cool.
I just have
and we'll
friends.
adapt those to the setting. Like shield dwarves and gold dwarves are a particular couple of branches from the Forgotten Realms. But we'll adapt those to the as we go along.
Oh man, maybe I should be a cook. Take cook's utensils. I'm gonna have to think about what type of artisan tools I want.
Instead of a 10-foot pole, you have barbecue tongs.
Yeah.
So Aser, do you what do you have in mind? Have you thought through any further on your fighter?
No, I'm waiting for Megan to.
I decided you were probably gonna take the soldier background.
Oh wait, okay. I guess she has decided for me.
I will change it later if you change your mind, but that's the one you always take.
Something really familiar about this.
So we already see that neutral evil thing coming out.
She had me take the protection as my.
I gave you the list and let you pick. I just said that might be the best one.
Let me guess. You want me to stand 5 feet or less away from you at all times?
I mean, I'm very short, so.
So yeah, when I was playing my barbarian, it was in that long running campaign. It was always amusing because there were 4 of us, and I was the barbarian, and there was a rogue and a wizard and a dwarf cleric, and but yeah, like because I was the one dedicated fighter type, and because of the way I played the character, he was always running into the forefront of things. But the really dangerous character was the rogue, because it was a halfling, and she was like the variant of halfling that can basically dart in and out and hide behind friends. And so I would have always be the one just sort of soaking up damage while she kind of jumped out from behind me and sniped people and was doing ridiculous, especially once she got up to, the assassin subclass. She was just jumping out and using her little hand crossbow dart gun to do like 30 points of damage at a pop to whoever she wanted to snipe at. It was entertaining. So let's see, Chris, how's your character sheet foo coming along?
Good. I'm looking at Azemar, and I'm thinking Fallen.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so tell us about the Azemar. That's one that's not in the main rulebook.
The quick skinny they are primarily like a mix of celestial, but for Fallen, it's going more with my darker concept for the character to go with the haunted one that's also associated with it.
There were giants in the earth in those days. Do you know how would one of the Azemar look or talk or whatever, or sound different from just a standard boring human like Aser?
I think it's going to do something with the tone of the voice. It might even be so much that they talk in a whisper, but it sounds almost as if it's a megaphone. So they're whispering, but you can still hear them across the room.
They got reverb.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Creation is always the chatty part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mark, what stage are you at in things?
I am inputting some. I'm trying to figure out where some stuff needs to go on the sheet. I've decided to go ahead and put the background piece on the bio page. I've got my personality stuff all set up for background. I'm working on proficiencies right now. Yeah. The feat I took for variant human was alert. So I need to figure out what all I need to add in various places to make that useful.
Okay. So for backgrounds on the Roll20 character sheet, if you go to the top of the sheet where it has the class and the subclass and everything, there's a little gear.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Character level. And if you click that, it'll change that top right thing, and you can type in your background and alignment and your experience points there. So you have to toggle that back and forth to get access to those elements.
All right, very cool. Thank you. That's very helpful. Well, yeah, I'm just at this point. All that's left for me to do is to finish filling in the basic stuff. Gear, equipment, all that hoo-ha. I think I've got everything else dialed in, skill-wise and things like that.
Yeah. So you asked about the alert, how to set up things for the alert feat. So I can go through that a little bit just just for examples' sake. On the Roll20,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, on the Roll20 sheet, like if you scroll down on the main character sheet to features and traits, it looks like you've already added alert as a thing and where it came from. But what you can do there is below. So yeah, you've got it selected, and it says source type variant human, and below that, if you just click in that white space, you can type notes. So you can type whatever description you want. So for alert, what alert does is it gives you, you're always on the lookout for danger. So you get +5 to initiative. You don't need to put that there necessarily. You can just put that in the initiative box up at the top. But you can put it there if you want as a reminder of where that huge +5 bonus came from. And then you can't be surprised while you're conscious, which is the big one. So you definitely want that to be there as a reminder. And then it says other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being hidden from you, which is also a huge thing. And those things, it's useful in 5e to pay attention to the language, because when it says other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you, it means creatures. Like there are some things that you might encounter and fight that are dangerous and that might be hidden from you, but they're not creatures in the game sense.
Right.
It might be constructs or whatever.
So that's good. Now I need to manually input the +5 bonus on my initiative. I'm assuming that I can do that by hitting the gear.
Yeah, in fact, you can. Yeah, it looks. I'm watching your sheet as you're manipulating it. So you've hit the little gear to switch to the settings. So in attribute options, that middle section, it lists initiative modifier along the way down there. So I think what you can do, it says 0 right now. If you just change that to 5,
right,
then when you switch back to your sheet, it'll show 8. Yep.
Look at that. Genius, I tell you, genius.
Yeah, it's handy.
Let me just make sure I've got everything skill-wise I need.
Can you ask what skills you're taking?
Yeah, I was going to suggest you might want to compare notes with everybody, because that way you can, it never hurts to have some overlap with the crucial skills, but it might, if you know that somebody else has one that's available to you, you might have more fun choosing a different one.
Very good. Since I'm Skillmeister McGee here, let me tell you what my rogue currently looks like vis-a-vis his life's decisions that led him to this place on the ship. Acrobatics, deception, investigation, perception, persuasion, stealth, and there's one more I need. So is there anything there that everybody's just got to have or really needing that I can maybe concentrate elsewhere? Or are
I
we
have perception.
and perception is one of the ones where it's okay to double up for sure.
That sounds like a good spread.
Yeah.
And for if any of us overlap with skills that you have, that's not necessarily bad. In case you fail a roll,
Or he's unconscious.
Or is or mysteriously has been knocked unconscious for some reason that has nothing to do with anyone else in the party.
Not sharing enough loot with the cleric so they wouldn't heal you.
Yeah, can't believe it.
Just
There
lock the loot for some reason.
was another campaign I played in a number of years ago where I thought it was really entertaining, but I don't know if the other players did, where I was playing like a chaotic neutral cleric or something like that, or maybe he was neutral, but the main point is that I was playing a cleric who was an aggressive proselytizer. I was always holding back, pure spells.
That's Southern upbringing, Shane.
Oh yeah, no, I've been steeped in it.
All right, I've still got my feat skill to take. I've my thief skills, my rogue skills. You can tell I'm an old fart. My rogue skills and my background skills have been logged. So my variant human skill can kind of be left of center. Right now, my sort of image of this guy is the fast-talking, likable character who just is wanting to do whatever he can to get something going. He's always got an angle, got a scheme. So I'm trying to. So I've got persuasion. I don't really want to do intimidation. That's not him. But I'm kind of either looking at survival or maybe insight.
Seems like insight would be up your alley.
Yeah, that feels more like, can I get a sense of this guy after watching him haggle with the barkeep over the cost of the bill, that sort of thing, right?
Chris, if you lock down your skills, I was wondering if you're going to take Intimidate.
I am not taking Intimidate.
Okay.
Right now, if I stick with the paladin, which basically means I am going to actually make up both characters and see which one I like better. Arcana, Investigation, Persuasion, Religion. Regardless of what happens, I am going to definitely keep Investigation for either one.
Okay.
That's my old school gamer in me that needs to make both to compare them.
That's fair.
It takes dedication. I admire it.
Skirmish them against each other. See who comes out on top.
This is coming together. So Shane, let's talk names. Do you have a style guide for names, or I was looking at this character as being somebody from the city state.
Yeah, I was just in fact, what I'm doing right now is I just realized that the thing I forgot to put in that About the Broken Empire handout was links to name generators that would suit each of the main cultures that I described there. So, but I'll tell you what you can do manually while I'm putting it together is there's a website called fantasynamegenerators.com, and at the top of it, the menus that it has at the top, one of them you click real names, and it gives you this huge infinite list of possibilities.
Yes, it's a great. Love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so for Zira, because I've sort of keyed Zira's languages, fantasy language off of Phoenician. Let me see. They actually have a Phoenician names option under the real names thing. Oh. So if you want, you can try that. Or if those names don't float your boat at all, then feel free to pick another one that's suitably exotic, right, and feels kind of appropriate to that region and time period.
I went with a Sumerian mythology name generator, which was just
sure.
I just took the name of the Earth goddess, which was Ki. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Okay, yeah, it's probably Ki.
Okay, Ki.
But I'll look it up in my notes on Ancient Sumerian if you want to confirm that for you.
Oh, there we go.
Is there not a shield bash stunt, Spivey?
feet.
Say what now?
A shield bash feat. I've been playing too much Fate.
Like using your shield to smash into people?
Yeah, I see the shield master.
Yeah, there's a feat that allows that, but feats are kind of thin on the ground in 5th edition. It's actually uncommon to start with one, but there's there are options in ordinary combat where if you just want to shove somebody, or move them around, you can attempt to do that, and we can describe that as you're using your shield for it. Or we can use your, the shield modifier as to go along with the attack roll or the athletics roll. Usually trying to shove somebody, if that's what you're trying to do, is an athletics test, which means you're making a strength roll modified by your athletics skill. But if you've got a shield behind you, I could float allowing a bonus to that.
Okay. My character sheet is like stuck saving. If you go into my character sheet, can you see anything on it? Because it's at like 95% done building my character for the last 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I see lots of stuff on there.
Okay. I assume I can close this then.
Everybody cross your fingers.
Hopefully I don't start crying. Yeah, that's all the stuff I just added.
Oh, good.
Except I don't think my skills were selected. That's okay. I can fix that.
I'd say save frequently, but then you'll just, with your luck, corrupt the file.
There we go. They're all checked this time.
So I'm a little quiet right now because I'm adding those name links in, so I'm kind of concentrating on that. As you're going along, if you've settled on things, or you want to compare further on skills or feats or cultural backgrounds, if anybody has any questions about the cultures and religions and everything, feel free to ask.
Yeah, the only thing that I was wondering, I'm really looking at so the language of the Broken Empire. It's I'm assuming that it's a mix then of the original Zyrian and the Samaran, right?
Largely, yeah. The common tongue is essentially Zyrian, the way I usually play it.
Got it.
Because the Zyrian Empire was in place for so long that even though it's been overthrown and a lot of its former tributaries have been kind of left to their own devices for however many decades, maybe even a couple of 100 years now, a lot of those, the language that became so prevalent is still stuck around. So I kind of imagine the common tongue in this setting as mainly Zyrian, but with a lot of sort of Pigden elements from other languages that have crept in just from usage over time.
All right. I like that.
Do you have a name idea for your character, Aser? I'm going to pick your personality traits now.
Oh, roll them.
You want me to roll them?
Yep.
All right. I guess I could use Roll20 to roll them. I don't need to use actual dice. You have a crude sense of humor.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
All right, Aser, is that something you can play and have fun playing?
Yeah, we'll make it work.
You don't have to keep it.
Okay.
You also enjoy being strong and like breaking things.
Sounds about right.
And your ideal is a D6. When people follow orders blindly, they embrace a kind of tyranny.
And does that like with the ideals, does that suit the whatever alignment you had in mind? Because some of the ideals are particular to certain alignments. They help you kind of
that one's a
play.
Chaotic alignment.
All right, I will go chaotic neutral.
Okie dokie. Yeah, your bond is my honor is my life.
I guess for a certain definition of honor.
My word is good.
And your flaw is my hatred of my enemies is blind and unreasoning. Do you want to keep that one?
Let's re-roll that one.
Okay.
Getting really boxed in here.
I have little respect for anyone who is not a proven warrior.
Okay, let's do that.
I want to emphasize that I'm not just cruelly preventing Acer from making his character.
I hear what you're saying. I'm just not sure I believe it. Sensing a dynamic at work here that we're not really privy to.
Well, I'm the one at the computer, so
Whatever you guys need to make it work. It takes all kinds of flavors to make a Baskin Robbins.
no, where to go? Okay, right now your character's name is A, because it wouldn't let me save it without a name.
Well, let's see what the Phoenicians have to offer.
Bodinal Court. Let's see. Balzer, Adir, Akbar.
No. No.
I have chosen Baldo Vandalarius for my rogue name, so feel free to spin off of that or not.
Adonius, Astartes, Zephon, Philoser. I'm not going to be saying any of these right.
And of course, feel free to, like if one of those sounds almost right, but you don't want to say us at the end of it every time, to just chop that us right off. Use the parts of the name you like.
Go.
Let's just go with Adonius.
Not keeping the in the front, I'm assuming.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Not going with Astartes and trying to not make Space Marine jokes. So you're welcome.
They don't have shields, so it's okay. I think I have everything. I for my custom subclass in the Character Mancer added that I also could pull off the wizard spell sheet so that I could add the unseen servant and find familiar.
Okay, good deal. Did that work? Did that work?
Yeah.
Right?
I told it I also got the 2 extra spells so I could add them. But they're there now.
Good. I'm glad that worked.
I really like that all the spells are just right here so I don't have to scroll through the book.
Yeah, reducing the amount of page flipping you have to do was the first challenge that people decided they had to overcome with 5th edition. So it was like right after the game came out, there was decks of spell cards hot on the heels of it.
Yeah, and then I can just click on my character sheet to make a roll. That's fancy.
That's what I need. Hoo-ha. All right. I just got smart. Theoretically.
In what sense?
I get expertise at first level with 2 skills. I chose Thieves' Tools because, that's what you do. And for the other one, I went ahead and picked my Insight skill. And so my character's not really wise. He's got a 12 wisdom, but he knows people pretty well. So thanks to the expertise in Insight, he gets a +5 to those rolls. That's good stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so expertise doubles your proficiency bonus, right? So instead of
that's right, you can pick 2 skills, or you can pick a skill and Thieves' Tools, and so there you go.
All right, very cool.
Yeah, I get leather armor. Hot diggity.
Yeah, you're going to want to trade that up really quickly.
Quickly, as in just as soon as it's been perforated by stab wounds.
The exciting thing is to me. I mean, it might not be as exciting for you guys, but to me, one of the exciting things is I like to use a version of the lingering injuries rules. The way that I try to play hit points is losing hit points is no big deal unless you go to 0, and that means you've been actually hurt. So you roll on the table to see what part of you got really hurt, and then that sticks for a while. So when I was playtesting these scenarios the first time around, one of the players, he built this ranger, and he was perfectly platonically optimized as an archer,
Oh no!
And the first encounter that they got into, he got dropped to 0 hit points and lost an eye. And so the lingering injury rules are brutal. Every ranged attack is at disadvantage after that. Oh, he pitched such a fit. I had mercy and eased up on it.
Okay, now my armor class went up. The armor didn't save last time.
I've been running a Delta Green campaign where one character just is not dying, but keeps getting seriously injured, and sanity is tanking. So they will be the instrument for a TPK, I think, at some point.
It's a matter of time. Yeah.
I'm just taking my sanity. It's fine. I don't think playing a scientist character in Delta Green is a smart move because I want to look at all the things.
It's in Delta Green. It's kind of funny to me because you've got it always feels like there's two kinds of players. Like there's some players who they get into it and they want to play it as well as they can, and they want to do their best to beat the adventure and to come out of it and succeed despite the horrors. That's how I play all the time. I love the problem solving, but and then I've got friends who they're into it for the insanity. So they'll, like, when they do their stats, they'll make sure power is the one that gets the lowest score they have to roll. So their sanity evaporates at the drop of a hat.
I didn't quite do that bad, but I did collect weird mold that grew on blood and studied it further.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And that sounds fascinating if you're like a biologist or something.
I'm playing a mycologist, so it's even worse.
Oh yeah, come on.
Acer was targeting me.
Thought that was my job.
I think our characters are done except for me going back through with Acer and making sure he approves all the decisions I made.
All right. Well, do you want to start with Megan? Why don't you start with your character and kind of give everybody the breakdown so the other players know, give us the summary of what your character's like and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what do they know? What do they know about you?
All right. He is a dwarf, unsurprisingly. I'm gonna go with she worships the underworld goddess Illyria. Is that close?
Let's see, which
Volcani.
culture did that come from? Oh, okay. So you're from one of the so-called barbarian tribes or the regions.
I might change. I was basically going on which god sounded the coolest off the deities commonly associated with the domain.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
But
Illyria. So yeah, like it says there in that the link in that handout, the region is dominated by the Falcon Tribes and the gods that they worship. They tend to be animistic and druidic, and as I wrote it there, making little distinction except in scope between the spirits of trees, rocks, animals, the spirits of the dead that find new homes and places or beasts, and the mighty gods of the earth and weather. And they're kind of subject to particularly brutal deities to keep their people alive. So Illyria, the goddess of the underworld.
Actually, I might change to Sahayak because they have the same alignment as me, and that might be better, which is Iskutai. I don't know if I want to be a nomad. I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah, that's fine. So Iskutai, as I wrote it, is kind of analogous to the great Asian steppes that were dominated by the Scythians and by their descendants, the Huns and the Mongols. These huge, dangerous nomad tribes, and then further east, some of those tribes have settled down and joined with other cultures, and you've got sort of a branch of the same people, but instead of nomading around everywhere, they're in big cities and they consider themselves civilized.
Okay, I might go with that then, but it might change by next time we play.
Sure, yeah.
She is short because she is a dwarf. She has hair sort of the color of rich, well-fed earth, and maybe like a slight gray tinge to her skin, but not anything that makes her look that weird. She is a master dwarven crafter, mostly with jewelry, I put one of my bonds is I created a great work for someone and then found them unworthy to receive it. I'm still looking for someone worthy. So I probably have a really awesome box that I carry around with me until I find the right person to sell it to.
Okay, yeah, that sounds cool.
But yeah, I'm a summoner cleric. I can't quite summon anything other than an unseen servant yet, but I'm getting there. And
being able to summon an invisible spirit that'll do stuff for you is way more summoning than any of these other people can do.
That's true. I'm already ahead. And I have a warhammer.
I'm shocked.
He's just used to playing D&D with me.
Now, since it's 5th edition, take a look at your weapon proficiencies and make sure that Warhammer is available to you. Because some get martial weapon proficiencies, which I think is a Warhammer, and some don't, which means you're limited to the simple weapons.
Okay, I do have Warhammer as a proficiency.
Oh, good. Okay, there you go.
So she does a lot of traditional dwarfish stuff, but she also likes making jewelry, which I guess is still sort of traditional dwarfish stuff. That's key until I come up with more backstory.
What are your spells?
I have, wisdom. I have for my cantrips, Sacred Flame, Guidance, and Light. And my level 1 spells, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Inflict Wounds, Bless, Unseen Servant, and Find Familiar. And I can cast 2 of those a day.
All right.
I keep casting that instead of reading about it.
Yeah, that happens pretty frequently. You have to click in exactly the right place for it to do what you want, and if you don't, then weird things happen.
Yeah, I'll type up more of a background for her and put it in the character sheet.
Yeah, cool. So I would say just start with the that Deities of Iskutai link, to get a sense of it, and then feel free to just add elements or make things up that fit with that.
All right.
And we've got some leeway here, a little latitude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's a big world, right? So the very brief descriptions that I gave there, none of that should be thought of as being written in stone. Chris, what's happening on your end?
I'm just plugging in stats and information.
All right. Did you? So are you settled on the paladin still?
Right now, the other one I'll make by myself later. Then I'll compare the 2 of them.
Gotcha. Okay. So what
you
can
should
you
be
tell
able
us
to see
anything
the
about
character sheet. Actually,
yeah. What can you tell us about it?
I went with a somewhat standard paladin build for the start. It's got a high strength, some high charisma. Focusing in a little bit more on some of the versatility. That's why investigation was important, because I envisioning the character being somewhat more of a dark hunter that tracks down monsters based on its background it's encountered.
Okay.
And they've even rolled up some of the different personality, we'll call them quirks, that they gave me.
All right. What do those look like?
For instance, growing up, I witnessed a dozen people being killed, and the monster left me untouched, which means instead I will never run from evil. Evil runs from me. Mm-hmm. I don't talk about the things that torment me because I don't want to burden others. I will kill monsters to make the world a safer place to exercise my own demons. And I feel no compassion for the dead because they're the lucky ones.
All right.
So Chipper is my middle name.
That is a dour paladin.
Does a cloud just continue to float over the ship as we sail across the Sea of Storms?
I would think, but with the Scourge, in fact, I can radiate a divine light that comes from every pore of my being.
It sounds like maybe it's an angry light.
It is. I'm also in the low wisdom camp.
Yeah, those stat points don't go very far once you get started.
Well, if it is constantly raining on us, at least we won't have a water shortage.
Oh, that's very positive.
It's very easy to look on the bright side. I mean, it's coming out of all of his pores.
Okay, I've updated that About the Broken Empire handout with a name generator link that goes directly to the pretty good matches for the major cultures and regions. The only one that I haven't filled in yet is the Kievalkan one, because they're way up north, and I wrote a whole adventure featuring that culture, but I based its language about and names around Indo-European and the because it's an old culture that's been isolated for a long time. And the fantasy name generator, even though they've done I don't know how many dozens or hundreds of name generation programs, they didn't put Proto-Indo-European in there yet. So I'm deeply frustrated.
I've chosen my deity too.
Oh, okay, yeah. Tell us about the culture you come from and the deity.
Chosen Talan of the storm, king of heaven, god of storms, thunder, rain, sailing, battles. Commander of army, commands the armies of heaven, overthrows monsters and keeps cruel Samatar bound in the depths of the ocean.
And which culture did that is that from?
Exaltic scholars of Sindasa. That said with absolute confidence. The land of light.
Yeah, Sindusa. Yeah. So it's there's another one of the adventures is set in that region, in fact, and it's so Sindusa is kind of a it's based like all of these. That all of these are started off based on historical old cultures. So Sindusa was based on ancient Vedic India, like the period of the Rig Veda before. It's sort of a version of India that's not entirely familiar to us when we look at it now, but that's where it evolved from.
Is also the birthplace of gods and mortals.
Sindusa absolutely was, according to Sindusans.
Everywhere I go, that's what I'm going to say.
That's right. All right. Who else do we want to hear about? Mark, you've told us about Joe. You're from rogue from the great overthrown decaying city-state of Zira.
That's right. Baldo is one of those guys that you like him, but you're pretty sure he's up to something. And in fact, stories vary wildly about how he got to be on the ship. But regardless of whatever story he's telling somebody, everybody's pretty sure he's working off a debt. He got caught doing it. And, being sentenced to or being conscripted or pressed into service, however you want to put it, on the ship, on the Heart of Iron, is the way that he's choosing to pay off that debt. If he's not hanging out with the folks on the deck, he's usually standing next to the captain, talking in her ear, trying to get her to go along with whatever horrifyingly weird scheme he's cooked up, which she never does. She just no, Baldo, no. Don't you have rope to tie? Don't you have something to be lashing to? So
the good news is the first adventure is going to start with her finally caving in and agreeing to one of these schemes. We'll learn the details of it as we get going.
I knew you'd warm up to me. It was only a matter of time. So he's he would rather make a new friend than an enemy. He's a big believer in personal freedom. Sailing life actually agrees with him. He thinks chains were meant to be broken, as are those who would forge them. So while he is proud to be from the city-state, he's also the first one to disparage the city guards' uneven-handedness when it comes to dealing with criminal elements and things like that. He's pretty impulsive. This isn't. I haven't figured out what it is going to be yet, but he's looking for something. There's a reason why he's doing all of this. It's some sort of long chess game he's playing to get something back, and he's, we haven't really delved into that yet. But I think I'm gonna work on that and include it on the sheet. What else do you guys need to know about this guy? His feats are skulker and alert, like a good rogue. He's armed with a rapier and a dagger. He can use a short bow, but strength is not his strong suit. So if push comes, he'll shoot if he has to, but he'd much rather get up close and be sticky pointy.
All right, very good. And all right, and then so let's see, Acer, do we know background details on your fighter yet? Like what part of the world you come from, and what's your have you worked out specialties, anything like that?
I also come from the city-state, and I think I came to the ship with a cargo to protect it, and found that this sort of life agrees with me more than my previous employment, and managed to broker passage through just hauling on ropes until I figured out how things actually worked.
Yeah, very good. And one thing I was going to suggest, by the way, is if you've had a chance to develop a sense of what bonds have formed between your characters, right? And it doesn't have to be with everybody, but if you can sort of pick out one or two of your fellow characters and figure this is somebody that I've become close with, right? And why? And you might one way to get an idea for that is to look at the bonds trait that you chose from your background, and if one of them seems to fit one of your fellow adventurers, then that might be a good in for establishing that relationship.
That paladin's got his shit together. It's really scary shit, but I can respect that.
All right. Yeah, and the rest of you look that stuff over as well. And, like I said, pick out one or two of your companions and what kind of ties you together.
Okay.
I'm trying to pick up some pointers because he's definitely fought things that are more interesting than just bandits. You can see it in his eyes.
Well, I think it makes perfect sense for Key and I to always be on the lookout for something to pick up and pocket. So I'm not opposed to any kind of plan that she might have for doing a little larceny. I think our professional interest in shiny might be that helps us to be chumly with one another.
Joint ventures.
I was thinking also, Baldo is one of the few people on the ship who has heard of my name in context of my amazing art skills, if I could describe them that way, which I do.
Oh, yeah.
I was endeared to Baldo very quickly because no one else knows who I am, and they should.
Oh no, I'm imagining that you're going to get this scheme going where Baldo steals something and replaces it with a forgery.
I mean, that's a good way to make money.
Right. Yeah, a forgery that Key could manufacture so that there would be no crime because no one would know that it was taken. Yeah, that's. I can put my not inconsiderable brain to work on a scheme of such a nature. That's great.
And it wouldn't even be that big of crime because whatever I made was clearly really good artwork.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm giving them a gift.
They should be thanking us for letting them have something that you made. Clearly.
Anyway, pride is definitely not a concern for Key.
All right. And let's see.
I think mine is going to be a little bit darker than theirs.
What?
Shock me. I'm shocked.
For me, I've seen something that has Adonis's face, and I'm hunting it. And I think the best way to find it is to stay close to them.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, yeah. But you're confident enough that it's not actually Adonis.
Correct.
So they don't need to be murdered yet.
Correct.
Yeah, it's the thing that's going to murder me and use my face. That's the thing he's after.
Okay.
Do you tell me that you're looking for the thing that's going to be using my wearing my face?
No, because do you know what one of my personality quirks is? I will not share my burden with others. I tell you nothing. I'm scared, dark, and broody, and standing around a lot.
This is
Why do you
clearly
keep
an
looking behind
admirably
me? I'm really concerned.
Generous in spirit. All right. So very cool. So So okay. Now, by any chance, did any of your characters wind up having proficiency with water vehicles?
No.
No.
Oh,
Wait.
it didn't come up.
Why don't I take Sailor, Megan?
So
I'll take Sailor.
I set up another handout. It's called Ship's Officers, and the word officers is used pretty loosely here by our standards. But I added text from one of the WotC books, so don't sue me, guys. That breaks down when I decide to break out the actual ship rules, which won't be immediately, I don't think. But if you want to establish a particular role on the ship, then you can sort of see what's the best fit. And if you want to say, I've got a good wisdom and I know nature, and maybe I'm even proficient with navigator's tools, then I'm going to be the quartermaster, which in this case means the navigator. It's old Navy, old sailing term for navigator, as opposed to the way we usually use quartermaster these days. But you can look at each of those. The ship already has a captain, and but if one of you is charismatic and good with intimidation and persuasion, then you could certainly volunteer to be considered the first mate, especially if you know water vehicles. If you're strong and you have athletics and you know carpenter's tools, then that's a great fit for the bosun. If you're smart and you have medicine proficiency and herbalism kits, those are all good ingredients for the ship surgeon. And if you have a good constitution and you have proficiency in brewer's tools and or cook's utensils, then that's a great fit for the ship cook.
The most important role in the ship.
Well, it's everybody disdains the cook until they start starving or dying of scurvy.
Right. All fun and games until we got to start picking weevils out of biscuits.
So,
you're
the first meal, you mean?
So you'll be glad to know I've re-rolled your characteristics, and you still got my languages as foul as an otiug nest. You can't get away from it.
So being on the ship, like if your character, if you don't really feel like you're a fit for any of those key positions in the ship's company, then then you're a straight up sailor, right? So if you're proficient with water vehicles, then you're a reliable sailor because you know what you're doing. And if you're not, then you're a sailor that the sailors who know what they're doing just says, go over there and haul on that.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's going to be me. I'm just going to be a sailor. Really in name only, but
a waster you will be.
That's right.
Exactly. If all sailors were able, we wouldn't have to say they were.
I don't have a space on here to note my sneak attack damage, so I'm just going to have to remember it, I think. But I've got that listed under my feats, so try to.
Right. Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head if there's something that'll activate that, like a button you can press to activate that. You may need to just when it comes, just sort of be alert, and when it comes up, then click the little dice roller for your additional D6 or whatever it is.
Not a problem. All right. And I got to change my hit dice. I think I'll do that in the things here. All right. Yes, I do.
So, are there do any of you have any other questions about the mechanics? About the core of the game and how it runs, or things that might be surprising about it that you haven't. Well, I guess if it was surprising, you wouldn't know to ask about it, would you?
I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Compared to other versions of D&D, getting hit points back is pretty flexible. I mean, it certainly never hurts to have a cleric around, but the cleric's not necessarily obliged to always be casting Cure Wounds as their spell, because you can, if at some point your character loses some hit points, you can take and your group decides to take a short, what's called a short rest, then you can spend hit dice. And at first level, you only have one hit die to spend, but what that means is you roll your hit die and add your Constitution modifier and regain that many hit points up to your maximum. So as you advance in levels, you'll have more hit dice available to spend along the way, which kind of substitutes in for having to have the cleric constantly be healing everybody all the time.
So how reasonable are keys rates for Cure Wounds?
What is it? Cure Wounds at first level is, you tell us. I think it's like a D8 plus your Wisdom modifier, maybe?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, no, I was just joking to see if she would charge for it.
The rates for it, right.
It's very reasonable rates.
In the immortal words of Rob Blagojevich, you don't just give that away.
The previous gold standard for how crooked can you be?
Right. And other things. So getting hit points back. The other thing is once you take a long rest, which is basically get a good night's sleep or something equivalent, then all your hit points come back. Right. So, and that's why I tend to try to role play losing hit points not as getting hurt, but just sort of getting worn out, and getting vulnerable. Unless you drop to 0, and in the normal rules as written, there's really no difference. Like if you drop to 0 and then you get a good night's sleep, you're perfectly healthy again. That's why I use the lingering injuries rules, because I'm mean and I like players to feel get hurt.
Well, you got a sucking chest wound. God, just sleep it off. You're fine.
That's right. So, but those, the lingering injuries rules they're actually my favorite part of Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a shame that they treated them as optional, but that's just me.
Well, you got to, get in those World of Warcraft players somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up when I was after my initial few years playing basic D&D and then AD&D nonstop for about 3 years or 4 years. We discovered Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest, and that changed everything.
Right. I'm going to work on my stuff when we're not sucking up airtime, but I feel like I got everything set up and ready to go. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have not done this ever.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun, and I've had a really good time running these adventures that I'm gonna run you through, and they get a good response. So I think you're gonna have a good time, and maybe die horribly, but hopefully
can't wait.
There's always another character sheet right around the corner.
That's right. So I would encourage you to put in your character's biography fields on the sheet, the ideas you came up with for what sort of bonds you've developed with the other adventurers, just to jog your memory in a couple of weeks when we get the first game going. And I updated all of those name generators, so feel free if you want to use those to generate a name that suits your background. And if you have any questions about the cultures or the locations, or what it means to be a dwarf in this part of the world, it's not covered by the notes I already put up there in about the Broken Empire, then shoot an email and we can hash it out, or just make it up and put it on the sheet and we'll use it.
Very good. Do you have any kind of like initial, just even if it's like an introductory paragraph to the Heart of Iron and what's going on with that, or do we just need to wait until the first session?
Yeah, I believe so. Just one second. So the as introduction to what your characters' lives are like right now, you're just starting off on the Heart of Iron in this. It's going through a big storm in the Sea of Storms. It's heading for an island that purportedly is the site of a long forgotten, long abandoned temple to the sea demon. And there are legends that an extinct people sacrificed wealth and their criminals and their own kings at that temple to quell the sea demon's wrath. And all of that treasure is supposed to be still lying there waiting to be claimed.
Baldo, I'm really unhappy with you right now.
But think of all the treasure. And so you've Baldo, you heard the rumor from a traveler in the ship's last port of call, traveler who said that they heard it from a water spirit when they were in sight of the temple, but then were driven away from it before they could investigate for themselves. And you shared it with the captain and your other crewmates, and then you went out and recruited more sailors to set out on the expedition. And here you are in the great storm, heading for the chance to find the sea demon's gold.
Tell me the captain's name again.
Helia Lynn Harrion.
All those extra sailors with their red tunics.
All right. Okay. Any last questions and concerns? Anything at all?
This is
Oh,
great.
sounds like it would be fun.
Good.
Yeah,
All right.
looking forward to
Thank
it.
you, everybody.
Yes,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you so much for signing up. I think this is going to be a blast. It feels like everybody's getting along, which is always good. You never know. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Good
talk
night,
to
everybody.
you.
an email, and we'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
This episode of Arc Dream Presents was recorded on Discord and Roll20. Special thanks to Mark Finn, Chris Spivey, Aser and Megan Tolentino, and Shane Ivey. Links to their work can be found in this episode's show notes. For more about the Swords and Sorceries series, visit swordsandsorceries.com. If you enjoyed this episode of Arc Dream Presents, be sure to subscribe and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. This episode's music is 5 Armies by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com under Creative Commons. Visit filmmusic.io.